Carl, get some water, quick!
Guys, yes, that was my Supercharged R8 on fire on my driveway, and you're about to learn why. Welcome to a very special episode of Flat Out Media. This one is called The Truth. Today I'm going to take you on a journey and you'll learn exactly what happened to the Supercharged R8. It all began on my best friend's birthday in 2016 when I purchased this vehicle, the car of my dreams, an ibis white manual V10 Spider Audi R8. I had this car for 4 years, which for me is unheard of. It's the longest I've ever owned a car for. In 2020, I realised that it was June 2020, I realised that it wasn't handling the same as it was anymore. I wasn't sure what had happened, but I learned that the suspension had failed on me. It's a very common problem on these R8 V10s, especially. The mag ride initially misses and then it completely goes. So it needed a full replacement. I was advised of a good independent garage called Autobahn. The owner's name is Roy Allen. And funny enough, I didn't realise this at the time, when someone recommended him to me, that we were actually doing his kitchen. So it all tied in really nicely, and Roy and I got on really, really well. Roy inspected the vehicle and immediately told me that the car needed a full replacement on the suspension. He didn't recommend changing for mag ride again because it's quite an expensive bit of kit, and actually he reckoned that with my driving the coilovers would probably be better. So I opted for a set of brand new still static coilovers. However, I never really drove it on them. I think I drove it twice. Whilst we were waiting for the suspension kit to arrive from Still Static, Roy and I spoke in detail about how the aircon wasn't working. Initially we thought it was going to be something really simple, just like a sensor or something like that. Until this point where Roy found, to his credit, a minor horror where there was a bung, as you'll see in the next clip, that had fallen out of the engine, really odd, and was pouring hot exhaust gas all over the aircon pipes and had actually burnt through them. So at this point we realised the engine needed to come out. Roy having a busy garage schedule meant that there was a little bit of time that elapsed, let's say, between him being able to get it in for such a major procedure, which is totally understandable. I decided at this point business was doing really well and I'll do something I always wanted to do. I'm going to supercharge this car. A supercharged V10 R8 is just going to be immense. I spoke in detail to A. Reeves' performance about the kit and decided I'm going to push ahead with the ESS tuning kit for the R8, which I purchased, pushed the button on and waited for it to arrive. Now the kit had arrived, it was back to Roy one day before my holiday to have the car whilst I was away for a couple of weeks, enjoying myself in the sun, and I parked up his long-term project in my own personal garage for him to keep it secure, and he could obviously spend all the time he needed supercharging, sorting my aircon, sorting my suspension on my pride and joy. Roy removed my engine with no problems at all, brilliant job, and this is where it all went wrong, when he refitted the supercharger. On this channel I never pull any punches, and I tell you guys how it is. The ESS tuning supercharger for the V10 R8 is pony. I know they make some really good BMW kit, but for the R8, don't even go there. It's majorly flawed, and I'll show you just 2 of the flaws that Roy encountered. Not only did they supply one for a coupe, and mine's obviously a Spider, some modifications had to be made, but there was no email communication with them either. In this next clip is the supercharger mounting plate, which obviously had to be fitted and the engine refitted to the car to find out it was leaking.
Coming down from the back here. Yeah, there it is, look. Right there, bellowing out. That charger's going to have to come back off. It's not something Elliot's going to want to do.
Annoyingly, it was only discovered that it was leaking, and it could only be discovered when Dan Hilburn from Uber Tuning was tuning it and realised there's something wrong here. He's getting some readings. I mean, I'm not a technical guy, but he was saying that instantly he could know that there was a boost leak of some description. He's 4 hours away, so that was a journey and a half. Collected the car, brought it back down to Roy, where Roy had to rebook the vehicle in, remove the supercharger with the engine in place this time. Once he removed it, he realised that even following the ESS instructions, it doesn't tell you to paste it. It definitely needed paste, so Roy had modified that. He'd repasted it, and not only that, the bolts that ESS had supplied were actually too long. So when they were hitting the bottom of the plate, it wasn't doing up time. So obviously it was creating a gap where boost would escape. After this first issue was discovered, here comes the second issue. As you can see in this picture, the supercharger pulley is mounted really close to the water pipe. And the water pipe, albeit they flattened it, as you can see in this photo, it was still, once the pulley has run in and there's a bit of movement on it, was actually chafing against the pipe. So it was actually cutting itself apart. So that also had to be modified as well. For that, it went up to A. Reeves. It is worth mentioning at this point, because the car went to A. Reeves, I said, because they are the leading ESS tuning distributor for the UK, is it worth them supplying the software to A. Reeves and it just being generically mapped there, sent back to me, and it all complete? It's worth noting that ESS, and still to this day I don't know why, refused to give us the software for which I paid for the kit. In the long run it worked out really well, because it meant that A. Reeves had only supplied half the kit, which meant that he would therefore return the kit. The car would burn through plugs, it would flash the EML light. Funny enough, on YouTube I went out with another YouTuber, Official Petrolhead TV. For one run in it, we couldn't even do a couple of miles with it without it sort of sounding like it was about to blow up. It was at this point that the car went back to Roy when he had a chance. Obviously, as I say, he was really busy with other work. This wasn't his only project going on. So when he had time, the car went back and he removed all the injectors and sent them off for testing. He was told, and we were told, that those injectors came back and testing okay. I haven't seen the report sheet and never saw that, but I was told that they were okay. It was at this point that we truly hit a blank. We'd hit a brick wall. The car sat outside my unit for months. Richard couldn't understand that if it was his mapping. He reverted it to standard, a stock map, and it was still misfiring, it was still fouling plugs. We didn't have enough time to log it between the fact that it would burn these plugs within maybe 2 or 3 cycles of the ignition at some points. There must have been something wrong with it massively. Everybody hit a blank. It sat there. I asked Roy to go back to the injector place because Richard kept saying to me that there's something wrong with the injectors. He said there's just something wrong with the fueling. I cannot get the fueling under control. Roy thought it was his mapping, and to Richard's defence, why is it gonna run perfectly twice? If it then starts fouling, obviously in hindsight, which is a good thing, and now that the knowledge I have with other cars, I probably should have listened to that. However, I'd got to a point, I'll be brutally honest, that I was just depressed with it. It sat outside my unit for months and months, just gathering dust, with no one being able to move anywhere on it. On Easter weekend 2021, I decided enough was enough of looking at it out there. I'm going to bring it home, park it down the road until Roy had enough time and a chance to take the supercharger off, because it was getting to a point, I keep saying it was depressing me. I didn't want to look at it. Everybody that came to my unit asked me questions on it. They said, wow, is that the Supercharged R8? Like, how's it running? You know, and it kind of started to destroy my life when I thought to myself, I've spent £60,000 on this project and ruined a £50,000 car. So I brought it home to my house. It never made it there. Little did I know, the R8 Supercharged would never get back to my house in one piece. The injector seal had been pinched. It would be unfair of me to blame or accuse anybody for doing this, but here is a picture of it. The outcome of this, coupled with what I now know, that not just one but 3 of the injectors were pouring fuel openly because they'd failed. This in turn meant that fuel came back up out the bit of the seal that was not closed correctly and sprayed petrol all over the hot exhaust. Luckily, we're talking tiny little amounts, hence why I was able, as you'll see in the next picture, to blow out what was actually a piece of plastic that was on fire. So it wasn't actually a fuel fire in the truest sense. Obviously it started with the fuel, but it was actually the plastics burning that I blew out. When driving the car, thank goodness, I only started doing it when I pulled into my road. I knew something was definitely not right. Off camera, what you can't see is me rolling underneath my garage door and grabbing the fire extinguisher from my caterum. What I didn't know, and God rest his soul, Howard, my deceased neighbour, had also grabbed from his garage his fire extinguisher, which when he heard my car come up the road, he thought, wow, this thing's about to explode. So hence we both ran over and helped put it out. These shots right here, which were devastating, I couldn't even look at for a few days, is the aftermath of what the fire did to my car. I decided at this point I must just soldier on. I'm going to have the car fixed and just get it sold. I agreed with Roy to pay £3,000 for a brand new wiring loom, which is what it needed because the old one was obviously crispy, and everything to put it back together. There was new plastics, there was spray work needed. It was such a mess. The overall bill, I believe, was over £10,000 just for this mistake. Happy Easter to me, eh? Only after the car was reassembled, I realised the cause of the fire was when it went to the renowned R8 performance. It must be said, what those guys don't know about R8s isn't worth knowing. The car still wasn't running right. I suppose it wouldn't with 3 downed injectors. So Ricky Elder from R8 Performance took on the task of getting this car running right, and he did, which really brings me on to the summary of this. Obviously, if I had gone there from the start, would I have had a supercharged R8 running right? I think absolutely I would have. However, I'll explain the summary of this story. Like with everything in life, it does come down to the big M word, money. Sometimes you think you're saving money by taking it to a mechanic for the bolt-ons and a tuner to tune it. However, there is a lot to be said about a single place taking full accountability, my favourite word, of the situation, where Ricky would have had the ability to test the injectors in-house. He would have had the ability to tune it in-house, and I know for a fact I would be getting back a supercharged R8 that actually worked without months of grief. However, this is not paid for vid by Ricky, it's just me saying it as it is. Funny enough, we've got another scenario currently where we've got a supercharged Mustang that is currently with MAP. They've taken full accountability for that, and they are making that car and that project work smoothly for us, which you've probably seen in previous videos. As a final note, this is the R8 replacement. Massive shout out to both my wife, who stands by my crazy decisions, and my best friend, who helps me achieve everything. And God help everybody in my crazy life. Anyway guys, stay flat out, enjoy what you do. Until next time, here's the video. Listen.
Hey Carl, get some water, quick! Well done. Wow.